I want to invite you to turn with me to the book of Amos, Amos chapter 7, and I would like to read verses 12 through 15 from the English Standard Version. Amos chapter 7 in the depths of the Old Testament, chapter 7, verses 12 through 15. It reads like this. And Amaziah said to Amos, O seer, go flee away to the land of Judah, and eat bread there, and prophesy there, but never again prophesy at Bethel, for it is the king's sanctuary, and it is a temple of the kingdom. Then Amos answered and said to Amaziah, I was no prophet, nor a prophet's son, but I was a herdsman and a dresser of sycamore figs. But the Lord took me from following the flock. And the Lord said to me, go prophesy to my people Israel. For a few moments, I would like to speak from this thought very simply, the testimony of the taken. The testimony of the taken. Friends, sometimes God calls us, and we are able to use our autonomy to decide when or where we will answer. We have time to discern, reflect, pray, fast, meditate when we are called. But God does not always call us. Sometimes God sends us, and God equips us with divine direction, godly guidance, sagacious structuring, infinite instructions, and masterful maps to help lead us to the place where God wants us to be. But God does not always send us. Sometimes God commands us. God gives us an order, demands, imperatives that we must honor and acknowledge with humility, sincerity, and swiftness. God may say, go, come, stop, listen. But God does not always command us. Sometimes God does not call us, command us, or send us. Sometimes God takes us. And it's interesting because I never shall forget a day I was rushing to get on the plane late on a flight, and the line was backed up. 20 people were waiting to get on the plane, and we later discovered that there was a 3-year-old in front of the line. And the 3-year-old was enjoying himself as he was taking in the view of the plane. And his mother then had to ask him, son, you don't know where you're going, so step behind me. She took him by the hand. And when she took him by the hand, she took him to his seat. It's interesting. Sometimes we have to switch our position to get to our purpose. Sometimes God is just like that mother. We're standing there amazed by life. And God is saying, if you just switch your position and let me take you to where I want you to go, we'll get to our purpose much faster. That's what happened in the text when the priest Amaziah wanted Amos to stop all of this prophesying. He wanted him to leave the northern kingdom, Israel. He told Amos, go back home. Go back to Tekoa on the eastern slopes of the Judean hills in the south and go earn your bread there. Chill out with all this prophesying here. You're messing up my profits, Profits, and my paycheck. Go back down to Judah and do all that prophesying stuff there. Amos responded, I am no prophet. I'm not the son of a prophet. I'm a shepherd. I'm a dresser of sycamore trees. But the Lord took me from tending the flock and said, go prophesy to Israel, my people. Amos responded and said, God took me, and I am where I am because God took me. Amaziah wanted Amos to go back to Judah and earn his bread there. Whenever God takes us to complete an assignment, there will always be the temptation to go make some more bread. Amaziah was making his bread. Amaziah was making good money as the priest. The people of Israel had to come to the temple to make sacrifices, money. They came to the temple to pay taxes, money. They brought sheep and bulls and fruit and harvest to the temple, money. And in some of our faith traditions, nothing has changed. Most priests, pastors, and bishops ignore the moral for the financial. They lower their voices to raise their budgets. But Amos was taken to preach to Israel, to let them know that God was fed up with them. Israel loved religious rituals, but they weren't being real. Israel loved ceremony more than they loved equality. Israel loved singing, but they didn't love serving. Israel derived violence against the weak, stepped on the poor, slapped the have-nots and the marginalized. Israel was terrified of Ebola, but many of its citizens were still having unprotected sex every week, as if AIDS, HIV, gonorrhea were not devastating diseases too. Israel hated to see children slain but did not want to adjust the gun laws in the country. Israel killed black boys and pretended to live in a post-racial society. Israel was corrupt, capitalistic, stuffed the greedy, starved the needy. Oh, my bad. That's not Israel. That's America. Their greatest injustice was how the rich aristocrats of Israel lived luxurious lives while those who were made their living off the agriculture were being stepped on because they were trying to make the ballers and shot callers climb only higher. Whenever a nation is getting out of hand, God will take someone and use their voice. He took Moses to talk to Pharaoh. He took Nathan to talk to David. God took Jeremiah to talk to Judah. God took Paul to talk to Rome. God took Jesus to check the Pharisees. God took Dr. King to talk to the Southern segregationists. God took Dorothy Height to talk to sexist men. God took Jeremiah Wright to talk to President Bush and the USA. Sometimes God will take us. And how you ask? First, God, whenever he takes you up. You see, Amos was in Judah, the lower southern region, and God took him up geographically. But God did not just take him up geographically. God took him up socially. See, Amos said, I'm not the son of a wealthy man. I'm not the child of an elite. My dad was no pastor, but God took him up in spite of what could have held him down. You see, when God called Moses, Moses said, who am I to go speak to Pharaoh? God answered Moses and said, Moses, I will be with you. Moses must have been thinking, now I know God is smarter than that. I didn't ask God if he'd be with me. I asked, who am I to go speak to Pharaoh? Who am I to set the people free? Who am I to go to Egypt? And God responded, I will be with you. Because whenever God takes you, it doesn't matter who you are. All that matters is who you're with. Forget your resume. Forget your experiences. Forget your curriculum vitae. God does not need you to be adequate. God just wants you to be available. God does not call the qualified. God qualifies those he calls. God takes you up. We don't have to kiss up to anybody. You don't have to brown nose. You don't have to network and pass out business cards. You don't have to kiss the soft part of someone's spine. Because when God takes you up, when God takes you up, he will keep you up. That's why you humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and in due time, he will exalt you. And I hear it all the time. Reggie, you're a YouTube sensation. Reggie, you preach all over the country. Reggie, your church has 10,000 members, and your pastor asks you to preach when he's gone. How did you get all of that? What did you do? I can explain my life and my ministry in 4 words. God took me there. I stayed humble and hungry. I loved folks and I listened. I stayed teachable and approachable, because when God takes you where he's going to take you, it'll be a place your dreams couldn't dream of. God takes you up, then God takes you out. Watch it now. Amos was making money. He was a sheep herder. He had the power to trade animals and wool. He picked fruit off the fig trees. He had the power to sell and trade the fruit. And in this agrarian culture, Amos was making money. He was in corporate. Are y'all with me today? But God took him out. You see, when God uses us, we don't have careers, we have missions. Being called is not an occupation, it's a vocation. God doesn't promise you money. God didn't promise you power. God doesn't promise us a mega church or popularity or a nice Mercedes. The only thing God promised us is a cross with the potential for a crown. Never worry about being successful. Just be faithful. God takes us out of culture so that we can lead and change culture. You see, Christians are counter-cultural. God takes us out so we can pull other people out. God takes us up, then God takes us out. But lastly, God will take us through. You see, it's not easy being a prophet. It's not easy being a preacher. And today, it's not easy standing to proclaim the mysteries of God, of the unmoved mover, of the ground of being. It's not easy standing up for God. We live in a world where the police are gun unhappy. Some people think minorities are non-human. There's fear roaming the streets of urban communities. The government acts like gangsters, the blues against the reds. Our churches are growing numerically but shrinking spiritually and ethically. It's a rough time to be a preacher. Guns, shootings, death, disease, racism, riots, sexism, classism. It's rough. But I hear David saying, when your mother and your father forsake you, then the Lord will take you up. Isaiah said that he heard God say, for I am the Lord, your God, who takes you by the right hand and says, do not fear, for I will help you. God will always take you through. And see, he read earlier, Nigel read that I'm at Vanderbilt, but I didn't start out at Vanderbilt. I went to Yale, and I got there, and it was not the place that God had for me. See, I went to Yale, but God took me to Vanderbilt. I wanted not to embarrass my family with a full ride at Yale Divinity School at one of the Ivy League institutions, but my soul was not at rest, and I had to learn that I'd rather be at peace with God than have popularity with man. And I was wondering how I would get through that time when I had to leave Yale in the middle of a semester in February. But God whispered to my soul and said, Sharpe, I brought people through tougher stuff than that. I brought people through slavery. I brought people through Red Seas. I brought people through exile. I brought people through fiery furnaces. I brought Jesus through a crucifixion, and God will take you through. God will love you through it. God will hold you through it. God will help you through it. God will talk you through it. God will walk you through it. God will strengthen you through it. God will advise you through it. God will guide you through it. God will sustain you through it. God will equip you through it. God will protect you through it. God will cover you through it. God will shield you through it. Be not dismayed, whatever betide, because God will take care of you. Beneath his wings of love abide. God will take care of you. He'll take you up. He'll take you out. But I'm so glad God will take you through. God bless you.